just levitate.
How's it going, guys? It's Ryan here, and welcome to this day of release guide to Next Angel of Death for small teams. This video is going to cover gear, invent setups, all the mechanics, all the different phases, and all the roles as well. As this is a day of release guide, all the mechanics I show will be correct and all the ways to counter them will be feasible, but it may not necessarily be the best ways in the long term. Now, that being said, we got to a point where as a team we were getting very consistent 6 to 8 man kills in between 8 and 12 minutes. I've been killing this boss for the last 10 hours, and I'm going to share with you all the tips and tricks I've picked up, and yeah, let's get right into it. First and foremost, let's talk about requirements and recommendations. The only actual requirement to fight this boss is a frozen key, but I would recommend strongly, if you're planning on killing it in a small team, you have at least tier 90 weaponry, 90 plus defense, and magic or ranged, as those are the preferred combat styles, as well as overloads. All those things are going to really help you get consistent kills, and in this boss, damage per second is really important, which is why the tier 90s are recommended. Okay, now we're going to look a little bit into Next Angel of Death's stats. First off, Next has 3 million life points, has a combat level of 7,000, attacks with magic and melee in melee distance, has a max hit of 7,000 plus with a regular attack, and 35,000 plus with a special attack, which is a one-hit mechanic. The AOD has no weakness, but I'd strongly recommend not bringing melee combat because of all the running around and mobility that is required in the boss fight. Now we're going to look into the roles. In an Angel of Death kill, there are 2 main roles, 2 people base, and then the rest of the team does DPS. Now, because most of the boss fight mechanics are exactly the same for both roles and they include everyone, I'm going to talk about the mechanics phase by phase first. For the sake of simplicity, I've split up this boss fight into 4 main phases. In each of these phases, the mechanics repeat over and over again, and there's a little bit of overlap, but not very much. So, let's look at them one by one. After I take you guys through each phase and each mechanic and what to do for each of them, we're then going to look at a full kill as the base as well as the DPSer, and we're going to talk team strategy. The very first mechanic we're going to talk about is the Blood Reaver. Some of the clips I've chosen to demonstrate mechanics were actually from a stream. I streamed about 30% of the next AOD I did today, but I've made sure that any of the clips I chose from the stream, my face cam was not in the way of any important mechanics. So anyways, let's talk about the first one. As you can see, the arena is split into 4 different quadrants. In an 8-man, you're going to want 2 people in each quadrant, and in a 6-man, you're going to want 1 DPSer in each quadrant, and then the tanks will stand opposite each other. The first mechanic is really simple. AOD will say the elements, they call to me, and then all of a sudden he'll slam himself on the ground, spikes will protrude, and then 3 of the 4 quadrants will get a Blood Reaver. The trick here is you want to basically just stun lock the Reaver. Make sure you're using your stuns like Asphyxiate, as well as Impact and Deep Impact, and you need to kill it before it reaches Next. If a Blood Reaver runs into Next without being killed, any life points it has left will be taken off of the members of the team. This is a really easy one to avoid, and in an 8-man, every single quadrant will be easily taken care of. The example I just showed there was part of a 6-man kill. In a 6-man kill, 2 people have their own quadrants, and if those people are stuck with Blood Reavers, you might want to make sure that they've got them down in time, and if not, you can just hop over and help them kill them before they reach Next. Now, whatever direction Next is facing when she starts the attack won't actually receive a Blood Reaver. If they catch onto this, it's really helpful to jump onto another quadrant and help them out with their Reaver, but if you actually get caught without a Reaver in your quadrant, what you need to do is equip a shield and use the Reflect ability, and you can also debilitate Next. You're going to take 3 fairly high hits, and it's really good to negate some of that damage. You can also use the Resonance ability to negate one of the hits entirely. The next mechanic is the Shadow Bomb, and this one's both really easy and really lethal. Next is going to say, let the shadow engulf you, give into it, and at this point, you need to make sure that you're moving. You're going to see in a second these orange things are going to fall from the sky, and 3 of them will fall per rotation. When this happens, if you're standing under any of these balls, you'll be hit between 3,000 and 5,000 damage, and it'll also happen if you're standing on them later on in the fight. So those red balls you see on the ground are now off limits until they disappear. You can't stand on any of those squares. It'll get hit absolutely rapid 3,000 to 5,000 damages, similar to a shadow spot in the regular Next, but this time it's permanent. Now, I know that didn't look particularly lethal, but later on in the fight you can actually be stunned by minions. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but it's important to note that as soon as Next says let the shadow engulf you, give into it in your game chat, you want to be using the anticipation or freedom abilities so that you can run away from that stun. If you're stunned and then the orange thing comes up underneath you, you're almost 100% sure to die unless you're really good at putting in the bruise. In the last mechanic I mentioned minions, and that's the third part of phase 1. Phase 1's going to start by alternating between Blood Reavers and Smoke Bomb over and over again, but as soon as Next reaches 2.1 million life points, the phase is going to switch, and minions will also be added to this same rotation. You're going to want to stand as far back as I'm standing right now, and Next is going to say the stones, they empower me. Then an amalgamation is going to pop up with an adrenaline bar. You and your teammates need to kill all 4 of these before the adrenaline bar runs out, and if you do not, the minion that pops up will have 300,000 life points instead of 150,000. It's really crucial to get these down, so call for help, communicate with your teammates if you're not going to get yours down in time, and then the minions are going to spawn. The 4 minions that spawn are the exact same minions as you find in a regular next fight, and they attack you with magic and can do a fairly good amount of damage. The most lethal thing these minions can do is stun you, because as I said before, the same rotations in phase 1 continue through this minion phase. So as you can see, I'm about to get stunned here, and I'm going to use a really quick freedom, and that's going to save me as the shadow bomb falls down, and it would have absolutely obliterated me. And that's why while the minions are out, it's definitely worth keeping Anticip and Freedom off cooldown. Now, the order in which you kill these minions actually affects the rest of the boss fight. I would strongly recommend starting at Glacies and then killing them in a clockwise order. You can accomplish this by communicating with your team. You can get them extremely low and close to death, just make sure that you're killing them in a clockwise fashion, and I'd strongly recommend starting from Glacies. You'll see how killing them in order benefits your kill when we talk about the 3rd phase. That's all there is to phase 1, so we're going to start talking about phase 2. Phase 2 introduces 3 new mechanics and removes the previous 3. You've got the Smoke Cloud, the Ice Prison, and the Vindictifier. Next begins using phase 2 mechanics at approximately 1.55 million life points. The first one we're going to talk about is the Smoke Cloud. Next we'll say, even I cannot control the element of smoke, let us see if you can, and you'll see a black cloud of smoke as you see there. My mouse is basically following it on the screen. If you're a DPSer on the team, you need to make sure that you're standing inside this, and then someone on the team will click Commune. When this happens, 14,000 damage will be spread out between anyone inside of this. As you can see here, I messed up and I actually left it too early. What happened then is the 14,000 damage was spread between 3 people and not 4. If no one on the team clicks on this, you'll be dealt mass damage. This mechanic forces you to absorb the hit, and then you can resume attacking the boss. Next up, we've got the Ice Prison, like you've never seen it before. In a small team, this will only happen to 1 or 2 members of the team at a time. You're gonna see it on my screen in just a second here. Ice begins to form around your feet, locking you in place. Now, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna get surrounded in an Ice Prison. What happens at this point is anyone around me will take damage, so you want to make sure you're stepping away from members of your team, and then the members of your team and yourself have to do 100,000 damage if it's 1 person taken, or 50,000 damage to each prison if it's 2 different people taken, before time runs out. You really don't have much time to do this, so in a smaller team, it's really important to bang out your thresholds and free the people from the ice prisons. Unlike regular necks, it is not a one-hit attack though. If you actually get encased in the icicle, you'll take a bleed that you can freedom out of, but it hits rapid 2Ks up to 8,000 damage. This is a mechanic that makes having your teammates on a call really beneficial. This way, everyone knows who's about to be encased in ice before it actually happens. As you saw there's very little warning, and you're definitely going to get stuck if you don't know who's going to get prisoned before it happens. Here's an example of what can happen with poor communication. First off, you see someone get hit 1,666 damage. That's because they were too close to the person who got prised. On top of that, we were a little bit late getting to the person who got prised because we weren't aware of it before it was going to happen. This is in real time, so it should give you a sense of how much time you have to close these ice prisons. You're going to see us get it almost down, and then it's going to close right as it's red barred, and the player's going to get bled. It's also worth noting that the clip you just saw was in a 6-man kill. In an 8-man kill, you should have no problem at all closing every single ice prison before anyone gets bled. Now, the third and final aspect of Phase 2 is the Vindictifier. If you've ever been to Vindicta, you know the smoky fire attack that comes out. This is actually even less powerful than that, and it's really easy to block. There's actually a typo in the game, but you're going to see on top of my head it says next begins to draw smoke from the east towards you. Now, because it says east, if you surge to the north or south wall, it won't actually fire anything at all. At the same time, if it said north, you'd want to surge to either the east or the western wall to totally negate the attack. This is what the attack looks like if you don't actually cancel it. As you can see, there is fire absolutely everywhere, and it hits between 1,300 and 1,500 very rapidly, and it's really easy to dodge, so make sure if you get that pop-up that you are going to the appropriate side. Okay, now we're going to take a look at Phase 3, and I'm going to be honest, this one's a doozy. This is the phase that either makes or breaks your kill. You need to start Phase 3 by using the Anticipation ability right around 600,000 life points. You can use it a little bit before, but you definitely don't want to be too late. If you're too late, you'll get stunned, and then shadow spots will spawn underneath you and you'll be hit rapid 3Ks until you either manage to tank it or you die. One thing that does work if you do have full adrenaline is to shield switch, and if you spam click on barricade, you'll only be hit by one shadow trap, which is approximately 3,000 damage, and then the barricade will make you immune to damage for the remainder of that ability. If you're really unconfident with this, you can actually throw up a barricade right around 600,000 life points, and it will actually protect you from the worst of the hits. Just make sure that as soon as you can, you start running and you keep moving out of those shadow spots. It's also worth noting everyone's shadow spots are personal to them, so you can actually stand on other people's shadow spots, just not your own. The last real mechanic in Phase 3 is the one-hit bomb, and this is the one that's really easy to mess up if you don't know what you're doing. How this works is you'll have an adrenaline bar above your head. It's going to fill up, and you need to be standing in the very middle of the room before it gets entirely full. If you're not in the middle of the room, you will be instantly one-hit. Now, once you tank it the first time, it's going to charge up a second time. This time when it reaches full, a bomb will be planted underneath you. For the remainder of the kill, this bomb is going to stay there, and anyone underneath it is going to be hit 3,000 damage every 2 game ticks within a 3x3 square. There are really 2 parts to avoiding this. First off, make sure you're paying attention, and as soon as it pops up, you are running into the center. If you don't think you can make it, the barricade ability will actually work to block the attack. The second way this mechanic can ruin your kill is where you plant that second bomb. If you plant that second bomb in the DPS pile, or you take so long to finish this third phase that there are bombs all over the place, the DPS pile won't be able to stand anywhere without taking constant 3k hits. At the same time, if you plant your bomb in the very middle, anyone after you who needs to go clear their bomb won't be able to, because as soon as they go to the middle to clear their one-hit attack, they're gonna get destroyed by the constant 3ks from the bomb that you left there. When I was talking about Phase 1, I mentioned that the order you kill the minions affects the third phase. It does this because the order you kill the minions is actually the order that the crystals on the outsides of the wall actually open up. So if you kill Glacies first, the ice crystal will be the first one available to you, and then if you kill them in a clockwise rotation, it means you can keep moving clockwise. It's important to keep moving in one direction because the towers that you've already cleared become the places for you to plant your bomb later on. For example, once you clear the ice tower, no one needs to be standing there for the rest of the kill. So anytime you've got to drop a bomb, you're going to want to drop it there so that it's not actually affecting the DPS pile. The third and final mechanic of Phase 3 is so simple, I'm not even going to show a clip of it. If you get poisoned, you drink an anti-poison. Simple as that, just don't forget your anti-poison. If you do end up forgetting the anti-poison, it's not the end of the world, but the poison will be able to hit you well over 1,000 damage per hit. Okay, now we're going to take a look at Phase 4. Phase 4 is just an extension on Phase 3, and it's actually even easier. Once you clear all 4 towers, you can get back on Nex, and all you have to do is finish that last 600,000 life points and you're going to be good to go. Nex doesn't hit particularly hard for this phase, and on top of that, the only special attack you have to worry about is the one-hit bomb that we've already talked about in Phase 3. And that's it. We've now looked at and gone through every single mechanic in the entire boss fight. Okay, now we're going to take a look at 2 full kills. First off as a base, and then second off I'll be a DPSer. This should hopefully accomplish 2 things. First off, you should have a better sense of what the full kill looks like. All the mechanics we've already talked about, this is going to put them all together. Second off, there are a couple subtle differences between how you're going to approach a kill as a base versus how you're going to approach a kill as a DPSer. This should hopefully introduce you to some of those differences and provide some tips too. Okay, we're going to start this one in real time, and then I might speed it up a little later as the rotations start to repeat themselves. First thing worth noting, there are 2 different bases, so you need to decide and communicate with the other base and figure out who's starting with Nex on them. In this case I was, so I started off by firing off one ability and then I Voke Nex. It's really just important to keep your melee prey on and keep running your defensive abilities. Similar to Beastmaster Durzeg and Yakamaru, there's actually a stack mechanic where you get more and more stacks on you and Nex will begin to do more and more damage to you. How you clear these stacks isn't actually with freedom like it is in Beastmaster and Yakamaru, it's actually by letting the other base take Nex off of you. So basically, you're just going to play catch with the base. It really depends on your team, and a lot of it's up to personal preference and whatever you're comfortable with, but for us, we were basically doing 2 rotations each. So Nex would do 2 special attacks, and then I would Voke, 2 more special attacks, and then the other base would Voke back. This seemed to work really well, and there were a couple exceptions to it, but overall, you basically just play catch. You don't want Nex to be on one person for an extremely long time, because the stacks will just get ridiculous, and you'll start getting hit a ton. Now, as you can see, while Nex isn't on me, I'm acting as a DPSer. Sometimes I've got my shield on, but for the most part, you want to be using your staff, and you want to be either clearing Reavers, dodging the regular mechanics, or even sunning on Nex. As it says on screen, Nex has begun directing her full attention to someone else. What this means is that my stacks have actually begun to clear, and that means that when I take Nex back, it's going to be basically a fresh start. I'm going to be able to not take a ton of damage, and that's basically what you're going for. On the whole, this is really simple. It's a lot easier than basing Beastmaster or Yaka, any high tier boss like that, because all you really have to do is play catch and food won't even be an issue. With a little bit of practice, you can base quite easily with a Nihil, although when you're learning, I definitely recommend a Beast of Burden. It takes all the issues out of it, it's totally unstressful, because if you mess up and you get like a 5 or 6k hit, not even a problem in the slightest. All you gotta do is grab some more food and chomp on it, and you're not at risk at all of running out. Whether you're a DPS or a base, it's always good to soul split on the Reavers because Nex actually won't be attacking you during that time. When you're basing, the go-to rotation is extremely simple. As soon as you evoke next, you're going to have your magic prey on, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do a resonance. This should get you all the way up to full hit points, but if it fails in any way, just eat some food, put on your melee prey, and then you're going to start off with your actual tanking. You're going to go through a devotion, and then a debilitate, and then a reflect. You shouldn't need any of your ultimates, but if you really wanted to, I'd recommend using rejuvenate or barricade over immortality. The reason for this is Nex actually can reset your defensive abilities and will do so if she's on you for too long. This is another reason why it's really important to keep going back and forth between the two bases. You'll notice that I spend quite a bit of time on Glacies right now. The reason for this is in my team we decided Glacies would get killed first and then we'd go in a clockwise order. I'd already agreed with the other base that while Glacies was up, I would do a full DPS rotation on Glacies just to speed up that portion of the kill, and then as soon as Glacies is dead, you'll see me evoke back and then let the other base go and do a full sun rotation on the minion of his choosing. As you can see, when I grab Nex back, I do a resonance, I do a devotion, and then you're going to see me go through the exact rotation that I described earlier. When you're basing, that's really all you need to worry about in the first 3 phases of the kill. Sometimes you'll be doing DPS, sometimes you'll be focusing on tanking as much damage as you possibly can, and that's really all there is to it. There are only really 2 mechanics you need to pay attention to in the second phase. If you're about to get ice prisoned, you might want to let the other base know so that they can voke, and so that the team can also free you. At the same time, if you need to surge to a wall for the Vindicta fire, definitely let the other base know so that they can voke Nex off you before you leave. You don't want to be running Nex all around the room because that's going to mess up all the DPSers' sunshine rotations, and that's why for the most part, we keep Nex right in the middle. As soon as the third phase starts, you have a choice to make. One of the 2 bases is going to pray mage as Nex will stop using melee attacks and is just going to grab Nex and tank Nex for the remainder of the kill. Nex doesn't do much damage and it's not going to use much food. The other base will then act as a DPSer, go full staffman mode, and just follow the rest of the DPS pile. I'll talk about that right after this when I go through one full DPS kill. Okay, the last kill you saw was an 8-man kill as a base, and this time we're going to be doing a 6-man kill as a DPSer. In the interest of not having to upload a 45-minute video, I've decided I'm going to show this kill in 4x. If this is too quick for you and you're on a PC device, you can actually go in YouTube and actually slow it down. I wouldn't recommend making it 4 times slower than it is now because the FPS should be around 7.5, which is going to be absolutely terrible, but in 2x it should be definitely watchable. As you can see, as a DPSer, your main goal is damage. Damage is absolutely crucial, and that's what's going to make or break your kill. If you have a 20-minute kill, people are going to start running out of food, but if you're doing a 12-minute kill in a 6-man, it's going to be really smooth. Over the course of the day, a lot of us would try Nihils for certain amounts of kills because a lot of the time we'd get kills without even going into our pack yaks, but overall it's definitely more worthwhile to bring a yak. The reason for this is if someone dies and all of a sudden your 6-man turns into a 5-man, turns into a 4-man, you might need that extra food. That being said, if it actually stays a 6-man or a 7-man or an 8-man or whatever team size you're actually planning on, you are going to be in a great spot. You're not going to run out of food, and all you want to do is just as much damage as humanly possible. Now, the minions do hit quite hard, so if you are stuck tanking a minion, you want to try and get it down as quickly as possible, but it definitely might be worth throwing a devotion or a debilitate in there, just so that you're not chomping through way too much food really unnecessarily. In this case, I'm using the Maniacal Aura, I have full DPS gear, and it's really just all about laying down as much damage as you possibly can. It's also important to note, you need to keep your life points high. A lot of the time, our DPSers would get killed to really silly things because they were just chilling on 3,000 or 4,000 life points. There are so many mechanics that can hit above that, it's absolutely not worth it. Just keep your life points high and focus on doing as much damage as you possibly can. After you take care of the minions, there's a short amount of time when Nex actually won't be doing any special mechanics. This is the ideal time to just drop down a Death Swift or an Onslaught or whatever it may be, and you can get a ton of damage done. You can see back there, but everyone in the DPS pile was absolutely part of that, and that really helped speed up the kill. Now that we're into phase 2, the focus kind of shifts a little bit. It's not quite as much about doing max DPS as it is about following the mechanics. You want to still be dropping Sunshines whenever you possibly can, Adren Pots, the whole lot, but at the same time, the focus is to make sure that you're actually following all these abilities, you're freeing people from ice prisons, because you don't want to waste everybody else's food. Now, I know we've looked at a ton of different mechanics and a ton of different stuff, but remember, this kill is going to last between 8 and 12 plus minutes, so there's actually a ton of repetition. Nex is going to go through the same rotations over and over and over again, and it should only take you a couple kills to be totally used to everything that's going to be happening. Now, right before 600k, you saw me Anticipation, that's super important, and now we're basically just going to be working in our clockwise rotation. You see a lot of running around like a chicken without a head, that's because there are shadow spots underneath me and you definitely don't want to stand in your own shadow spots. It happens again right there, but that's going to be the last of the shadow spots. As you can see, we're going to get the second tower down, and then we're going to keep moving. I got a one-hit mechanic, so I'm going to move that away, make sure the bomb drops somewhere where no one else is going to be, and then we just keep on going. I also dropped some sharks for someone else on my team, but that's definitely something you don't need to do. As you can see, the DPS pile just works as a unit. You go pillar to pillar until they're all down. Each pillar has 200,000 life points, so they shouldn't take a crazy long time to get down, especially if you're using either Sunshines or Onslaughts. I find Onslaught works really well here because you're not going to be taking all that much damage from Nex, and there aren't that many special mechanics to pay attention to, especially on the last two pillars. Anyways, after that, you just have to do 600,000 damage onto Nex. Really simple, no one's taking much damage, and it's just a really good time to go through a Sunshine rotation. After that, you're basically good to go. Grab your loot and enjoy. It does take a little bit of practice, but it really is as simple as that. Okay, so we've talked a whole lot about the kill, the mechanics, all that stuff, but why would you want to go in a smaller group? Basically, there are 5 different large drop rolls anytime you go into a kill and you actually finish it. What that means is that the top 2 tanks, as well as the top 3 DPS, are the only people who have a chance at getting the really expensive high tier rewards. Everyone else is going to get something valued between like 80 and 150k per kill, and all of the large drops are going to be upwards of 500k, and you could even get lucky and make billions. And as you can see, I'm not even exaggerating that. You could get a tier 92 wand or orb, which are worth an absolute ton of money, as well as a codex that'll give you the highest DPS prayers in the game. I'm not going to talk about prices right now because I'm expecting them to fluctuate in the coming weeks, but these items are all going to have significant value for quite a while. On top of that, you could also get the blood tentacle, which is a pet. It's extremely rare with a 1 in 3,000 base drop rate and a threshold of 1,000. Anyway guys, that's gonna just about do it for this video. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Anyways, other than that, best of luck at Angel of Death. Hopefully this guide helps a little bit. I made it because a lot of people were messaging me like, Ryan, can you take me with your team? My team's terrible, no one knows what to do. So yeah, hopefully I can clear some of that stuff up. Anyways, have a great one, best of luck, and peace out.